Title for all of Chapter 12 is Triangle Trigonometry, and you might remember a little bit of trigonometry from geometry, right? Yes? Yes, we're going to get into some sine, cosine, and tangent. And then we're going to take it a little bit further, but yes. So if you remember your sine, cosine, and tangent stuff, that's pretty great. Okay. So, first section here, we're just going to...
You make so posters like these?
No, that's my geometry class. Yeah. This first section is just called angles and degree measures. And so, obviously, you guys know what a degree is. So, you're going to put a little circle in the, like an exponent that's called a degree. So that would be 1 degree. 1 degree is 1/360th of a circle, right? 1 degree out of the whole circle is 1/360th, okay? And so the biggest difference is you were probably told in geometry by your geometry teacher that all angles are measured in a positive value, right? You can't have a negative measurement on an angle. Okay, so today I'm going to show you an angle that goes clockwise that's going to have a negative measurement, okay? So the first one, so if you have an angle starting right here at roughly 0 degrees, and you go counterclockwise with it, that's going to be in the positive direction. Let's say it ends up right about here. That's going to be like 225 degrees. Most of the angles that you saw in geometry were probably between 0 and 180, right? And you talked maybe a little bit in that last chapter about when you got to circles about getting up to 360. But you mainly probably stuck between 0 and 180. All right. This 0 is what we call the initial side. And so you can have an angle that has an initial side starting at 0 right here, but instead of rotating counterclockwise, we're going to go clockwise. And if you go clockwise, you're going to have negative 60 degrees. And the angle is going to look like that. It's going to end up negative instead of positive. The initial side is still the same. Initial side is still right here.
Is it really negative 60 or is it 60 degrees?
It is really negative 60. You can go yell at your geometry teacher.
No.
Nah. In geometry, all measurements are positive. So if like you measure something with a ruler, it's always going to be 4 inches, never negative 4 inches, right? If you measure an angle, it's going to be 45 degrees, not negative 45 degrees, okay? So when you go to draw an angle, sometimes you're going to be asked what quadrant your angle is lying in. So if you have an x-axis and a y-axis like this, there are obviously 4 quadrants. Quad meaning 4, so yes, 4 quadrants. And this is quadrant 1. So where's quadrant 2? To the left right here. So here's quadrant 2. And then you go down, right? Yeah. And that makes that quadrant 3. And then here's quadrant 4. In quadrant 1, the x value is what? How about positive? And the y value is positive.
You said negative.
They should both be positive. Okay. How about quadrant 2? The x value should be what? Negative, and the y value should be positive. Jump down to quadrant 3. X value should be negative, y value should be negative. And then quadrant 4, x value should be positive, and y value should be negative. Okay. Just a little side note, if you're going to see some angle notation, obviously from geometry you're going to be used to something like angle A, or angle ABC, or angle EFG, okay, where they use capital letters. Bless you. That one you're probably used to. Now today you're gonna see what we call a theta, so it's like a cursive capital O, or you might see it like an O that's split in half. Okay, that's called a theta. It's a Greek letter. And then every once in a while you're gonna see an alpha. These are just ways of notating angles. It's just notation, kind of like thinking of it as angle A. They might just say angle theta is blah, 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 is how many ever degrees, and then you'll draw it how many ever degrees, okay? And so, some of the questions on your assignment, they're going to tell you a certain amount of degrees, and then you're going to say which quadrant it's going to end up in. Every once in a while, the angle is going to end up on an axis. So if it ends up like right here, like say it's 180 degrees, so if the angle ends on either the x-axis or the y-axis, it's going to have a special name. It's going to be called quadrantal. It's a little hard to say. Quadrantal angle. And you might have two angles that are the same, or end at the same place, that end in the same spot, same place, same place, that same space. We're going to call that coterminal. So let's look at one. All right, I'm going to move that up. You'll see it in just a second. So coterminal, terminal is where it ends. Terminal, like when you die, you're terminated, like Terminator. It's where it ends. Okay, so co meaning together. So they end together, and generally the initial side is in the same place. So they start at the same place and they end at the same place, but the voyage that they take to get there is not necessarily the same. Okay, so if you have an x and y axis, we're going to start with an angle that's 150 degrees. So what, if I say an angle is 150 degrees, which quadrant is that going to end up in? So if this is 0 right here, so our initial side is 0, and we want an angle of 150 degrees, which quadrant, and that's positive, so we're going to go counterclockwise, which quadrant will that end up in? 2. So roughly about right here, right? So from here to here, approximately, we'll say that's 150 degrees, and it's positive. Okay? And you're asked to get an angle that is coterminal with it. Okay? So we're going to take 150, and we want to end at the same spot. Well, we can start at the same spot and simply go around more than once. So this pink one is actually 150 plus what? 360. We did a full circle and the 150, which means we end up at 510 degrees. Oops, 510 degrees. They're coterminal. Well, we can have the positive one. We can also have one that's negative. So starting at that initial side, we can also go this direction. We can go clockwise, which will make it a negative angle. Anybody know how many degrees that would be? Negative 210 degrees, right? How did he get negative 210? Yep. 360 minus 150 gets you to negative, well, it should be negative, well, yeah. Ends up being negative 210. These are all what we call coterminal. How many coterminal angles could we get with 150? More than, well, we got 3. And can we do another one?
No.
Can we do another one?
No.
Can we do another one?
Probably.
Can we do another one?
I don't know.
Yes, you could keep finding a bunch of positive ones because how you added 360 here, you could add another 360. You could add another 360. You could add another 360. You could keep subtracting and get the negative ones. So you can go either clockwise or counterclockwise and get them. Okay, so what you would do is you would start with 150 because that's the one that's kind of in the standard position, right? And then you would add 1 times 360, which is what we did right here, and that's how we got the 510 degrees, right? Then if you wanted to do 2 rotations, you'd start at 150 and you would add 2 rotations of 360. You'd get 870. Or you could do 3 rotations of 360 and you'd get 1,230 degrees. Okay? Or you could do the negative one we just did. Start at 150. Multiply by add negative 360. That's how we got the negative 210 degrees. Okay? So there's what's called a general form, which it starts with the standard angle of 150 plus, and then you just say n times 360. And for n, you can plug in any positive or negative number and get a bunch of coterminal.
So does that mean that there's infinite coterminal angles?
Yeah, I mean, you could keep going forever. Yeah. All right, so the next thing we need to talk about is degrees, minutes, and seconds. Okay, so degrees are obviously degrees, like 1 degree, okay? Then there's going to be minutes, and when you write it, you put the little apostrophe up in the air like that, which to me always meant foot, but here it's going to mean minutes, and when you see 1 minute, it's going to be 1/60th of 1 degree. And then seconds are going to be written as 1 double apostrophe, which to me, I always learned it looks like inches, but here it's going to mean seconds, and seconds are 1/60th of 1 minute. Okay?